Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Remember, if you love film or television content, please consider clicking that subscribe button because today we're going to be talking about a film that a lot of you have wanted me to cover on this channel for a while, and that is Sardar Udham. So let's get into it. So firstly, I just have to thank you all for really drawing my attention to this movie. After I did a video about RRR, a lot of you said this film was one that I should not miss and I should definitely check out. And even recently, I've had some recommendations, and I really just want to thank you all for drawing my attention to this movie because this is a really powerful movie that was unlike anything that I could have ever expected. And it was one that I did not know even existed until a lot of you brought it to my attention. So genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. So similar to my RRR video, I actually want to talk about the Oscar process for this movie because it actually is very similar to RRR, where it feels like it should have been India's submission for an Oscar because most likely it would have gotten nominated, and after seeing this film I can confidently say that it was deserving of a nomination in the international film category because, as I said, it is a genuinely moving film that I thought was just really good in what it does, and it is better than a handful of the actual nominees for that year. And a lot of this stems from a famous quote from a member of the Film Federation of India who is in charge of putting forward a film for submission for the Academy Awards. They said, and I quote, that the film projects our hatred towards the British in regard to the Indian people. And I fundamentally disagree with that statement. I think that's a rubbish reason to not put forward a movie for an Academy Award. Just because it's critical of someone doesn't mean it shouldn't be shown to a wider audience. If you get an Academy Award nomination, it's going to draw a lot of eyeballs to that movie, especially if it's an international film. You're going to get a lot of a Western audience watching these movies now because they're under the spotlight. And to kind of shy away from that, I think is a real shame. While I am not really an English person by any means, I am Australian, so I know a lot about English colonization and a little bit of the monarchy and things like that. I don't know a ton about English history. I know very little about the India and England conflict other than Gandhi, and that's about it. So I was really fascinated to learn more. I want to see both perspectives, and that's what this is. This is a perspective that is easy to follow. It's easy to sympathize with because at the end of the day, we're all humans and we can empathize. And you can tell just from these actions that what happened to the Indian people during this time was clearly wrong. And Sardar Udham really puts a spotlight on that in a very honest and confronting way that I'm very happy to see. But even so, I guess there could have been a way that even if it was submitted, it wouldn't have got nominated because the BAFTA is a massive, massive precursor to the Academy Awards. And if the BAFTA decides to shut out a movie, sometimes that translates to the Oscars. Not all the time, they're not the same body, but they are a large body that does have some influence. Something like that happened with Spencer. It was clearly critical of the royal family, and the royal family probably did not like that movie. However, because Prince William plays a massive influence on the BAFTA, they shut out that movie, and at the Oscars it got shut out in practically every category except actress, where it was probably lucky to get a nomination. So something like that could have happened for Sardar Udham, but to not even give it a chance is a little bit of a shame, I think. Now, going into the film itself, I found it to be really meditative, and it took its time, which sometimes could be at the film's detriment for sure. I think the film is a little bit too slow-paced, especially in the first kind of hour of the film, but it kind of leads to a very heavy and confronting climax of the film, which was so powerful, and you kind of needed that build up to get there and really make it hit home, which it does 100%. They're always referencing this event that happens at the end of the film, and when it finally transpires, you kind of understand completely where Sardar Udham is coming from this entire film and why he did what he did. Shujit Sarkar, who directed this film, does not shy away at all from the brutality that the English people exhibited on Indian people, especially in India, and even with just racist policies and acts happening within the country, largely because of Michael O'Dwyer and his influence. The lead of Sardar Udham, who plays this character, Vicky Kaushal, does a phenomenal job. He just can capture a moment just from his facial expression. He conveys so much emotion. You can see the weight of everything that is happening just through his face, and I really appreciate that kind of performance. And he even plays himself as a younger character, and he can do that really well too. He manages to pull it off exceptionally well. This is a film that spans over decades, and I think Kaushal doesn't get enough credit for being able to accurately convey the mannerisms and being a character that is so much younger and then so much older. He plays them both exceptionally well, and that deserves a ton of praise. Now, I do think that this film does have a very elongated runtime. It could have been cut down by 10 or 15 minutes possibly, especially in those early scenes as we're getting his journey from India to England. Some of it's relevant for sure, but it doesn't really play too much of a factor as we get to the final acts of the film. Just saying it in passing dialogue would have been enough for me, and we should have just kept the focus on this conflict between the Indian and the English people and really emphasizing how much of a toll this took on the character, because at the end of the day, this is what this film wants to convey. And as I said, it does a phenomenal job of doing it. It just takes a little while to get there, I think. But I keep coming back to that final scene. I don't really want to go into too much detail as I don't want to spoil the film if you haven't seen it, but it is exceptionally confronting. I find it hard to recommend it to everyone because of how violent and brutal it was, and some people just cannot handle that kind of violence in a film. So just to be a little bit empathetic there and to give you a little bit of caution before going into this film, there is heavy violence towards men, women, and children. It is very brutal, it's very confronting, but as I said, it needs to be seen. Kind of like a film like 12 Years a Slave or Schindler's List. They're very graphic, they're very brutal in what they convey, but it's a part of human history that we need to see. We need to be confronted with that in order to avoid the mistakes of the past, and I really cannot credit this film enough for doing that. On a technical note, I think the film is brilliant. It is shot extremely well, and the production value is insanely good. There is some excellent production design here that really takes you back to the 1920s, 30s, and 40s in India and England. So I really love all of that. Overall, I think Sardar Udham is a very good movie, which I won't really watch again. It's just too heavy to see again and rewatch and look at all the little details. And as I said, that really long runtime and some of the pacing issues that happen early on do hurt the experience a little bit for me. But it is definitely a quality film. I do recommend it to you. I would almost say it's kind of essential in a way in terms of learning a lot about history. We need to know about the good and the bad that happened in every country. You know, we usually get a one-sided and biased take on a country that we're from, as why would someone who is from a certain country talk badly about their own country? There's a lot of pride that happens there. So getting a different perspective that kind of shows that no, these people weren't always the heroes, that there were very violent acts that were committed that definitely deserve to be criticized, and those people definitely deserve to be punished for that. I think that's just so honest, and I just really appreciate the eye-opening experience that Sardar Udham gave me. And it kind of leaves on a very somber note. The film is so respectful and does a great job of illustrating the point that even though Sardar Udham should be an important historical figure in terms of what he did, this guy saved a lot of lives, and the fact that he's not talked about as often, especially in the Western side of the world, is kind of a shame, because until I saw this movie, I did not know that any of this happened. As a score, I'm going to give Sardar Udham a 3.5 out of 5. I recommend this movie to you. I think it's a good movie, and it probably was deserving of an Oscar nomination in the international film category, and it is a damn shame that it didn't get nominated. I'm with a lot of you there that it just got mistreated in that whole process, and I think we need more films like this out there. But with that said, let me know what you think about this film. I want to know some of your in-depth takes on this, because a lot of you out there that have seen my channel and saw my RRR video seem to have some really good insight on this film, and I would love to know more. So let me know in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.